Rajiv, how do you in fact see the early trends that are coming in? Of course, right now what analysts are saying is that Republican strongholds have been with Trump and blue states, traditional blue states have also been with Harris. But where do you see, could there be a possible seesaw in what we are seeing right now in the early trends?
Oh, well, it's hard to anticipate a seesaw. I mean, the blue states tend to remain blue and the red states tend to remain red. And the real sort of tiebreakers are the battleground states, the seven battleground states where, things are usually on a knife edge. Usually, when you look at the polling results, there's something known as a red mirror and a blue shift. So it's well known that the rural areas of the United States are red and the urban areas are blue, right? The rural areas are Republican, the urban areas are Democratic. So what tends to happen when you're running electoral results early on the day of the election, the smaller rural counties are able to count their votes pretty quickly and report their results. And so you see a lot of red. Whereas the larger urban counties with a lot higher populations, sometimes hundreds of times more than the rural population counties, um, they take a lot longer to report their results. And so in the beginning, a lot of stuff looks red, but then when you actually count up the big counties, things tend to shift towards blue. So that's the origin of the statement, the red mirage and the blue shift. Of course, the question is where are we going to land between the red and the blue, and that's always a tricky question. But we think that this is again a very close election. I'd be hard pressed to say that I can predict which way it's going to go. I don't think anybody can. But we are hopeful that Kamala Harris will prevail. I will say one other thing, which is historically it's been extremely difficult for a sitting vice president to run for president and actually win. It's happened very few times in the history of the United States. The last time it happened was in 1988 when George H.W. Bush uh, got elected president after being vice president for 8 years. If you were to go back to the previous time that happened, you'd have to go back all the way to 1836 when Martin Van Buren ran for president as vice president and actually won. And more recently, we've seen examples where sitting vice presidents have not been able to capitalize on or their term as vice president and win the presidential election right after being vice president. So that happened with Al Gore in 2000. That happened with Hubert Humphrey, and it's happened going back with Richard Nixon, actually, when he was vice president under Dwight Eisenhower. And the reason for that is the vice presidency is a role where the person is primarily in the background, and so it's very hard for them to point to specific accomplishments. Hubert Humphrey famously was asked, "What did you accomplish as vice president?" And his answer was nothing, but let me tell you what I accomplished as a senator. And so Kamala Harris has that baggage with her, right? The statistically or historically, the odds of a
When it
vice
comes to
president
Kamala
becoming
Harris,
president.
so you're saying that when it
Yeah,
comes to Kamala Harris, you're saying that here's a person who isn't, who's been part of an administration but cannot independently tell her voters that this is what she could do to, or rather, this is
or
what she has
has
achieved.
done,
Yes.
Yeah,
So it's a kind of unique situation where you are in the system, but you have to, go there and say that, oh, I can give a futuristic kind of a promise. So
exactly. And
it's
that's what
not
she's
a it's
done.
not an
She's made a
enviable position at
promise.
all.
Right, exactly.
And you come
So
with
she's made a
the
promise to
presidential
implement.
consequences as well. You do tend to represent the presidential baggage of negatives as well.
Exactly.
All right.
So, and
Okay.
George H.W. Bush famously said, "I'll take all of the blame if you give me half the credit."